This is going to be an incredible episode. My guest today has built a mini empire in the sports card world, but he went through some real tragedy and some incredible moments along the way. Hello, and here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Geoff Wilson Show. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee at the Nashville Card Show, and that is fitting because my guest today, Kelce, has built a mini empire in the sports card world, headquartered here in Nashville, Tennessee. Chris has been in the world for about 10 years, opening up now multiple stores around the country, becoming one of the biggest bulk submitters of graded cards in the country as well. But it wasn't all easy. He's gone through some tragedy even recently in his personal life. That is an absolutely incredible story with the most unbelievable ending you have ever heard. And we're going to hear it now. So welcome my guest. We're going to go to Chris. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
What's up, Geoff? Glad to be here, man.
I'm excited to be in your hometown of Nashville. We're here at the Nashville Card Show, the National, they call it. And this is a good show. A lot of people are setting up right now in the background, but I think it's going to be, exciting these next couple of days. This is your hometown. You got a shop here. Now you got other shops in other parts of the country. We're going to talk about that. But first, I got to start. There was something that I saw on social media a few months ago, right? This incredible story. First of all, started with tragedy, something that happened to you and your son, and ended in just this incredible moment. Tell the audience about that.
Well, I mean, as you said, it started in tragedy. One day I was just in my apartment and I woke up. I was actually sleeping, a little mid-afternoon nap, and I woke up to some people pounding on my door. And when I answered it, they told me I had to leave and my apartment was on fire. I honestly, living in an apartment, I really didn't think it was that big a deal. I thought maybe someone left their popcorn on or, in the microwave or something like that. I grabbed my safe just in case and I ran out the door. And maybe 20 minutes later, my entire apartment was gone. It kind of just, lightning struck my roof of my apartment and it just tore through the building. My son at the time, Maxwell, was not home, luckily, but I was there and I was able to, recover one item. But other than that, I lost everything in my apartment. So,
gosh,
it was a pretty tough day. And
yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
it's wild. Just what are the chances of something like that ever happening?
It's funny. I obviously, because it happened to me now, I hear lots of people come up to me and they're like, I had a fire when I was a kid or this, but I've never, knew anyone until this happened that kind of went through that experience. So, yeah, it was definitely life-changing, obviously, right? I lost everything, all my personal items, all my physical items, all my clothes. That was pretty tough, starting from ground zero of clothes, especially when you're kind of short and chubby and it takes a while to find something that fits, right? So it was just a wild experience, and yeah, we just try to move on from it and approach it with a little positivity, and that's probably where the next part you're going with.
Yeah, so your son lived in the apartment with you, and he lost his personal collection too, right?
Yeah, so I split custody with him, and he spends half his time with me. My apartment mostly was his collectibles, his collections and stuff, and that consists mostly of Pokemon, which we've been ripping together since he was just a little child, and then he's 9 now, and then it had his soccer collection as well. He's gotten really into soccer. We go to the NSC games, which is the National Soccer Club, the MLS team here in Nashville, together, and outside of that, he had a bunch of other kind of Nashville and soccer collectibles.
Right. So that's all gone. I imagine he's pretty devastated to find this out.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't happy, right? He actually handled it really great for a young child. Like I said, I think it helped a lot that he wasn't there. So he didn't really see the flames or all of that. But he did handle it pretty well. But yeah, obviously, for a kid to lose all of his stuff, he wasn't in the best mood.
But then something incredible happens.
So honestly, I got reached out. Messi was coming to town. Lionel Messi and the Miami team was coming to play Nashville in the championship of the League's Cup, which is a tournament between, Mexico and the MLS teams in the middle of the season. And so the tickets were wildly expensive. And even though I just lost a bunch of money and stuff like that and valuables in my apartment, I kind of sucked it up and just bought tickets to go to the game. And when people found that out, because I kind of made a post on social media about, I know these tickets are expensive, but to some people it means a lot. This is why it means a lot to me. The team got word of it, and they made my son an escort, or it's called like a player mascot. That's what it's called. And which means he gets to walk out onto the field with one of the players, And I was like, this is so cool. We've been watching Nashville for all these weeks together, this whole season, and now he might be able to walk out with his favorite player, And then we get to the game, and obviously he goes down there and he walks out, and the first thing I see is my son coming out of the tunnel with Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I get choked up when I think about it. But it kind of went, not viral, but like a lot of people shared the post because of the reactions that my son had to the experience. His face just lit up. I got very emotional like I do every time. It just meant a lot to us.
It was an incredible moment. I remember seeing that on social. I saw the stuff about the fire, and then I saw this stuff about your son with Messi, and I'm just like, wow, what an incredible moment for him. What a memory.
It was so amazing. And the best part about it was like, we took a tragedy, we kind of made it something that was memorable for life. And then when he got to school, there was kids that wanted to like touch his hand, because he was touching Messi's hand and things like that. So he just felt like a little celebrity for a little while, and it was just awesome to give him that. A week. It was literally a week after the fire happened. So it was pretty awesome.
That is an awesome moment for sure. That's an awesome moment. That's incredible. Well, I know you probably have had a lot of awesome moments with your card shop, so I'm curious to hear. Tell me about Nashcards. Tell me about how you got started with that originally in Nashville, and then we'll kind of talk about how that's progressed.
Yeah, it's great that you're asking me that here, because it's actually at this show. He runs a show twice a month, actually, here in Nashville. Geoff does. And, it's grown to this, obviously, a few times a year. But when I first moved to Nashville, I was kind of bored looking for something to do. I stumbled upon his show. That's where I kind of really fell into cards and got really into, discovered them.
What year was this?
I would guess this was around 2014,
okay,
2015.
So good
2014.
Time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Back before the hobby was cool again, right?
Yeah, well, we were kind of nerds in a gym back then, right? Just kind of, rediscovering these cards. It was a lot of fun, and then I got really into it. It was something to do as a hobby, and so I became a vendor, and I just, when I like something, I just become obsessed. And that's kind of just what happened here, and, the rest was history. So when COVID hit, I was in a pretty good position already. I had a pretty big social media following on Instagram, and I've been doing the show here for a long time to kind of take it to the next level. And that's what we did. We started a submission service first, which is we grade cards to PSA. And then we decided a few months after we launched that website to establish a store just to give us a little grounding and something that, people could find when they Google us.
Right. Yeah, amazing. So when did Nashcards actually open?
The store was in July of 2020.
Okay. Wow, so right
that's
after.
Actually when the website launched. The store was a little after that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so during while the crazy COVID boom period was going on full-fledged.
That was such a crazy experience. I mean, I'm not sure where you were at that time or, how involved or what we were doing from the moment I'm speaking of. But, like, when it first hit and I was already out of my job and invested in cards, it was scary. And I remember selling, like, I want to say something like 70% of my inventory just to make sure I had 3 to 5 months of bills covered for my family at the time. And then obviously the cards just went up, and I wish I didn't sell them all, but we had to be safe with our stuff. So
I remember that.
Time,
I remember that very well. And for me, I had my Market Movers product. I had launched my Market Movers product in mid-February of 2020.
Okay.
And I invested a lot of money on that, spent a lot of time on that, really excited, and it had a great first month. We had hundreds and hundreds. I think we broke 1,000 paid subscribers to the product, and I was real happy with how that was going right at first. And then COVID hits, and and the NBA shuts down, and then everything shuts down, and they cancel March Madness, and I'm just like, oh my God! Like the Sports Card Investor channel had really good momentum. Everything had really good momentum for me, And I was just like, this could literally kill everything. This could kill all of it, and my market movers, all of a sudden my market mover subscriptions, I start getting cancellations, when it had been like every day over day growth, and then all of a sudden cancellations. And I'm like, oh no, the first couple of weeks were pretty rough, and you saw card prices drop 30 to 40% very quickly, because people were selling just like you were, because they were like, oh my gosh, like I got to cover bills, and I got to get cash out of this. What if I'm not able to get cash out of this in a month or two?
Yeah.
And then of course everything changed, really kind of beginning of April of 2020. It had a couple of weeks of that panic, and then all of a sudden, The Last Dance comes out, and just this crazy surge.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that, because it was kind of once it started going up, it was so, I don't want to say easy, but it was just like, it was all rainbows and puppies,
it was
right?
Yeah,
it was like we were in the golden age of cards, right? And we all kind of knew that. But that moment right before was so dark and scary. There was a time where it was like, is everything that I just been doing, was it just for nothing? Is everyone just going to ditch this hobby and throw it in the trash? No one's going to have money. We're all going to be broke. We're going to go into a recession. It was just really scary to think that, I left real world jobs to do cards, and it might just disappear.
Yeah.
But when you think about it,
you went from that mindset in March to then a few months later, you're opening up a store.
Oh yeah, so it was crazy. Once COVID hit and the cards started going up, I knew it was time to go. I couldn't sleep at night, things like that, because like you said, it was a golden era. And if you knew that was going on, you just felt like every moment was precious, right? So we just put our foot on the gas and tried to do as much as possible and as little time as possible to establish a brand, to establish an actual company before the decline happened, which we all knew was going to happen. But if you're a company established in that decline, then you'll be okay.
Yeah, incredible. What incredible times. So I want to talk about PSA submissions, because your business has been built up largely on being a giant submitter, a giant grading submitter, right? And you mentioned before you opened the store, you started, the grading submission website and that kind of thing, and the store almost gave it somewhat of a presence, but it helped with the grading submission thing. That's how you described it. Why that? Like, why has that been such an opportunity for you, and why do you lean so heavily into that?
Even though you said, when I said 2014, when I found this show, you said, a little while ago. To most people, or a lot of people in this hobby, that's kind of a newcomer as well. I mean, it's obviously not the newcomer of COVID, but it's the newcomer before, right? So I was very new to the hobby. So when I got into this space and I saw opportunities a little bit, I was already kind of a new guy. So it was hard to be like, do this, do that, or just pop up a shop or have that in mind. But what I did see, and this is not a dog on anybody in the game or anything, but I thought there was a weakness in this submission service, because I was heavily grading my cards, and I was very unhappy with the customer service I was getting and the platforms I was doing it on. It was basically just messaging people on Facebook and saying, where are my cards? And this was, again, this was before, back in the day, when now there's all these sites that you can go to, right? But before there wasn't. It was just a few guys that you had to know. And I, so when I got approached by PSA and asked, the opportunity to become a bulk submitter, I just was like, I think I can do this a different way. And we started with A, customer service, and B, a website. I think at the time there was only one other company I knew of that was actually big with a website. Imagine that. That's how like easy it was for these guys to do it in a backroom style and make a lot of money. They weren't reinvesting into the service, in my opinion. So what I did was build a $20,000 website, basically, to organize that information, and launched with that. So before we ever even took a submission, we already had A, customer service representatives in place, and B, a fully functional website to track all this information. And I think that is kind of what just catapulted us to the forefront of the game. Our servers went down the first night we launched. They crashed our servers. And then, from there on, look around, everyone's doing it, right? Everyone built I'm not taking credit for the first to a website. I wasn't that. But everyone has that website. It's almost a necessity now. If you're going to organize this information for people, you have to have those facets now. So
interesting. And so what is the case today? Obviously you do a big bulk, submission business with PSA. PSA continues to innovate and try to make their own, the ability to submit direct to PSA, easier and that kind of thing. What is the value proposition today for, that works for you as a bulk submitter that gets all these customers coming to you rather than trying to go direct?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that you can actually save a lot of money if you do it the right way. If you send yourself, people don't realize all these shipping charges and all these insurance charges and all that kind of add up. A lot of benefits to our services is some of the shipments we're covering insurance, we're doing these kind of things. And we still match those same low rates of PSA. We also have lower minimums. I think the number one reason is our customer service and the convenience of it. I know so many people, if you submit to PSA just as a single customer, it's not a knock on PSA, but it's really hard to, if something goes wrong, it's really hard to be a guy with one single 20 card order, getting some real help about something that you think might be wrong with your order. But when you submit through us, we act as your representative. And so we can take any issue and kind of catapult it up to the higher ups at PSA and be like, I think you need to take a look at this. And that's the kind of stuff that we do all the time. Our website's a lot easier to use, and a big benefit is at a show like this, you can kind of just walk up to us and hand us cards. And then we just take care of them, you get them back graded, and you can't do that direct to PSA. You have to fill out forms. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to, kind of understand the process.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the shipping charges actually are a big deal. Like the shipping, I get frustrated every time, I submit to PSA. And we have, I have a bulk submission partnership that I use as well. But when the times when I do submit like a big card direct, it's always like, oh my God, the shipping, to get, one card back or to get 5 cards back or something, it can really add up. So, being able to, the fact that you can then group, a whole bunch of customers' orders together and that type of thing makes that so much more efficient. It kind
of just makes it more efficient.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not just a benefit for the customer, it's also a benefit for the grading company. PSA is able to grade millions more than these other companies, right? Because they're using these services like us through a volume of their percentages, right? So that your customer service goes down, your calls go down because I'm dealing with them instead of PSA. I know the other companies do that as well. We used to be with Beckett and SGC. We actually used to be SGC's #1 submitter in the world. But it just, the grading landscape, what I've found is it changes fast, and you just, all you can do is ride the wave and do the best that you can do at the time. And right now we think the best, play is the PSA. We carry PSA and we send top 10. I think we're 5 or 6 in the world right now with PSA a week to them. So that's what we're doing.
It's one thing that I think is really interesting. I think there's probably a really good business lesson in this. You had established, it sounds like, a significant PSA submission business. You had your website up and everything like that before you opened a store. So I imagine you had a good amount of revenue coming in. You had a good amount of comfortability with, I can start a store and I'm not having to build a base of business from scratch. Some people start stores and then, they got to figure it out. In your case, you started a store knowing I got this revenue stream I can carry forward over to this store. What was that the thinking behind that?
It's 100% the thinking. It's very interesting that you bring that up, because that's exactly the thinking that went through my head. I would have never, and I get asked all that, people about, I'm thinking about opening a store, do you have any advice? And I always say, why? Unless you can tell me there's like a very locational desire for that store, or you have that supplemental service, brand, income, something to think, then why aren't you just sitting on the internet selling cards, right? The main answer I get back is, the community, and I get that, and that's great. But if your goal is to maximize your money, right? And that's not to say no community. We have a very community-based aspect to our brand and our store. Come in, we have couches, we have all that. But, it's very hard. If I didn't have that submission service, I don't think my store would have made it. At the first. Like you said, I relied on that money. It helped feed the distribution, helped me gain distribution by being able to buy more because I was using the profits from grading to buy the wax and stuff like that. So, starting from scratch a store is a very scary thought.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I've heard about your store, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we've got the thing, we have obviously the element that we can leverage, which is audience and following, right?
So you have exactly what we're talking about. You already have something going, and that's why the store is popping up.
Yeah.
But you're not just a guy being like, I really like cards and these collectibles. I'm going to pop up in Atlanta.
Right.
And if you did that, it's not going to say it won't succeed.
Right.
And I'm not going to discourage anyone that they shouldn't try that. But boy, is it a lot harder. Yeah. I would imagine it's got to be a lot harder and more risky for sure.
Yeah. If you can mitigate your risk by building something ahead of time, whether it's streams of revenue ideally or audience or whatever it is that you can then bring into the store, that's obviously going to give you a greater chance of success.
You asked about the PSA service as well. That's another huge benefit of the store is when I was grading cards as a customer, just kind of doing this casually, I could never walk into a store, hand out my cards, and just be like, grade them. That wasn't a thing. Like, I had to figure it out. I had to mail them to strangers in a basement, and then they would grade them or all of that. Like this is kind of, it sounds surreal that it's a new reason or a new line of thinking to walk into a store and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Because now everybody does it, right? But that was a huge part of opening my store again, is that, I wanted people to be able to avoid the shipping altogether. They could just drive to my store. I had people driving from different states when I first opened to drop off their cards or their valuables. And so that provided such a huge boost to that store, right? Even they would hang out and rip a pack or a box. But if I didn't have that submission service, man, like I said, I don't think my store would have made it through some of those times.
Wow, wild. Well, that's really cool. That's great business advice. So you started that store. Now have you grown? You moved to a different location along the way here at some point?
Yeah, the first store is no more. Yep. That was in a small location. It got broken into a few times. It was kind of out in the boons. So we moved to a bigger, and it's kind of our mothership store now. It's right out about 20 minutes from here.
Okay.
And then we opened our second store outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's in Lakeland, Tennessee. And we call it our Memphis location.
Okay. So what made you go, so you went to a bigger store in Nashville, more space, and you decided, all right, we're going to go to Memphis as well. Now, Memphis is a bit of a hike from Nashville.
It's about 3 hours, store to store.
So what made you make that decision in terms of expansion strategy?
It did actually happen about the same time, too, which was crazy. That we did both of those things within, I think, 3 months.
When was that?
That was about a year and a half ago from now. Maybe a little more now. But I always say the reason for my store is the expansion isn't like I'm trying to take over the U.S. or grow to the whole, country or even franchise. It's more so my personnel. Both stores, the reason I opened them was because the people that were working for me or that I wanted to work for me, that's where they live. So essentially, if anyone knows Wade Rogers, I go live with him once a week. He goes to all the shows with me. He's my number one guy, right? Shout out Wade. But he lives there. He's got a family. He's got, knows how many kids. He's got tons of kids. But, I'm not going to uproot that whole family and be like, come to Nashville, do this. And, we always kicked around the idea. And one day he was like, I'm sick of these homeowners. He dealt in construction and stuff like that and ran his own company. And he's like, how about you just open a store in Memphis? And I was like, let's do it. And again, it's just the people. Like, I trusted him. And the same thing goes with my Philly store. It's two people that helped me launch the bulk submission service when we first started with PSA. They were employees of mine for, 3 years, 4 years now, 5 years. They live down there. They've been working remote for me, but it's like, why? Why not just open a store and generate revenue as well and have a third presence? So that's what we decided to do.
When did the Philly store open?
That was in July of this year.
Okay.
You're really quizzing me on these. I'm terrible with dates, and I should know this information.
So now you got 3 stores. That's incredible. 3 stores, but as you said, good people, right? I mean, I know, having operated a different type of retail store in the past, I had 3 stores in the same city, and that was difficult.
Oh yeah.
But it all came down to the quality of the manager, the quality of the operator, whoever was operating the store at the time, and how well that was running. So 3 stores geographically distributed the way that yours are, it's got to be about the people. And so it sounds like that's kind of what you base the decision of, like, I'm going here because I know I got really good people here that are going to do great.
Exactly. I wouldn't have launched, like I said, I wouldn't have launched any of those stores if I didn't have that foundation of a person first to really base that store around, and someone that I trusted, and not only trust about like stealing or anything, but trusted to represent that brand when, it's hard every day. And I'm sure you experience this more than we do by tens of thousands, right? But when people are, hey, you know, or asking you questions every day, or want to come and get a piece of your mind, or even just spend some time or talk, or tell you what they hit, you know. Do I love that? Absolutely. But does it get exhausting? You know,
Sure.
it can over time, especially when you have these locations. And so it is a hard task to sit at these stores all day and stuff, and you have to, you know, have the right people to do it.
Well, it's a neat framework that you've put up. I wonder if there's opportunity in the future for somebody who may be interested in their own store down the road coming to work for you in Nashville and saying like, hey, I see that Chris has done this before with a couple of other folks. Maybe if I go work for Chris for a couple of years and help in the Nashville store, maybe I can venture off and move to Knoxville and open up a store there, or wherever it may be, right?
I think that's why you're sitting where you are, Geoff. And, you know, and that's just to say, like, that's a great line of thinking. And I wish someone would do that. You know, come work for me, people. Like, come apply. Someone, I always, and this is not a knock on any of my employees. I love my employees. Like you said, it's all about the people. But are we looking for young, you know, eager people that can prove what they can do and stuff like that? What a better opportunity than a small business like ours, right? Like, I say that to all my employees. This is like what I dreamed of when I was in college and I was like working at these law firms. You know, you're trying to work your way up and you realize that you have nowhere to really go. But in a small business like ours, where you could really show some damage right away and show, you know, I'm able to run a store. How much opportunity is that, you know? So yeah. Anyone listening to this, you know, if you're talented and you're interested in, you know, moving to Nashville, come see me.
There you go. I like that. When you moved to these other locations, when you did Memphis, when you did Philly, you kept the Nashcards brand.
Yeah,
did you ever think about rebranding for those markets, or did you know, like, I don't know, Mem Cards or something?
I know, it sounds terrible, right?
That doesn't sound great. Phil Cards, I'm not sure about that. But did you say, like, what was the decision on wanting to keep the Nashcards brand everywhere?
It honestly never crossed my mind to change it. Always said that's what we're going to do. I did, you know, I was asked by some of my people, which we do have, like, you know, board meetings, if you will, or some meetings and stuff. And they were talking about, what if we do this, that, and I said, no, it has to be Nashcards. And that's just because the whole brand in the submission service, for example, was founded on that Instagram page, which I named Nashcards, just because I moved to Nashville. And so it wasn't even about the location or whatever. It was just where it started, what it was, what everybody knew. And I've been traveling to shows all around the country as Nashcards for all these years. Why lose that, you know? And I like our logo. I think it looks cool.
It's a really good logo. I will compliment you. I think you have one of the best logos in the sports card hobby by far. It's a very good logo. The colors are good. The imagery is good. It's very recognizable. It catches your attention. It draws you in. I also, you know, Nashville, from somebody who doesn't live in Nashville, obviously, who's never lived in Tennessee, or, you know, and only visited a handful of times, Nashville has a cool factor, kind of an aspirational feeling to it, right? Like, there's certain cities in the country that are like, I really want to go there because that's a really cool, fun place to go.
100%.
It's got that reputation.
And it's because, you know, there are a lot of artists today that are moving here for their music careers. And so if they're moving here for their music careers, it's got to be cool for anyone to move here, right? Just like LA back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's actually why I'm here. Is I was in Los Angeles. I had a baby out there. With a woman, and we were looking for a new place to live. And, you know, we wanted to be over on the East Coast, but we didn't want to move to some no man's land or whatever. We wanted to be in a city that was similar to LA. So we picked Nashville, and here we are today, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, cool. Yeah, well,
inspiring.
Because I think it's got that desire. Like, you see some of the LA brands that have LA associated with their brand name or something like that, and they keep that, and that almost helps them in other parts of the country, because people are like, oh, LA is cool, and that's what their brand's trying to convey. So I think Nashcards.
I don't think that's what I was ever really going for, and I don't think I generate that cool vibe to many people.
If you were like Akron, Ohio, if you were Akron Cards, I don't know that Akron Cards would play well in Philly or in Memphis, but Nashcards I think is going to play well. And I probably offended somebody from Akron who's watching, but, you know, it doesn't quite have the cool factor that Nashville does.
I never thought of it. Also kind of sounds like NASCAR, right?
Yeah.
Like, and not that NASCAR is cool, but it's a familiar phrase.
Sure, that's true.
So I think there's some familiarity with it as soon as you hear it.
Yeah.
Which is important as well.
So Chris, what's next as you look out to the future of what you're doing with Nashcards and with a hobby in general? Like, what do you Where do you think this is all going to be? Where are you going to be 3 years, 5 years from now?
I'm hoping relaxing a little bit. I can tell you that. I've been on the go with this, especially because, like I said, the grading landscape is ever changing, right? And so I've had to pivot and adjust so many times, and it's exhausting. From going to, we signed with PSA, we were top 10 in the world within 6 months with them. And then they shut down. I found out by logging onto their website that they were shut down, and my whole business was built around this service. So I had to pivot from that and figure out what to do. And we chose SGC, and we were number 1 in the world with them in 3 months. So, we're go-getters. We're hard workers. But at the same time, there's a cost to that, right? I have a family. I have a young child. I'm working hard now to spend a lot more time with him, trying to get away from the cards a little bit. But to answer your question, definitely still in cards. Like, I don't have any dreams of getting rid of this. This isn't like something I built to sell. This is what I retired to do before it was cool. And so I'm going to continue to do this for the rest of my life, I'm sure. Just in what kind of fashion, I'm hoping, overseeing hopefully a handful of stores, to be honest with you.
Cool. Good. Well, it's going to be exciting to watch how it goes. For anyone out there watching who's not familiar with Nashcards, maybe is interested in your submission service or wants to come visit your store, what's the best way for them to find you?
Our website is nashcards.com. Our grading service is nashcards.com/grade. You can always email our support, which is what I started with you, is one of the best things about us. So we have Monday through Friday customer support. You can email them. It's support@nashcards.com. Or just come see us in person at one of these shows or at one of our locations. Again, we're outside of Nashville, we're outside of Memphis, and we're outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's awesome. Chris, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it, and I think everyone out there probably really enjoyed watching it as well. If you did, please give it a like, please give it a subscribe, and just a reminder, you can catch the full-length episodes of this show, The Geoff Wilson Show, on YouTube under The Geoff Wilson Show, as well as on Apple Podcast and Spotify, so make sure to subscribe there as well. Chris, appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me, Geoff. I really appreciate you.
And thank you, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.